Well, I gotta definitely give my take and my opinion on this matter. But when I first learned about it earlier this week, not really surprised that the Canadian Football League is seeking some government intervention with the ongoing pandemic with the COVID-19 or coronavirus here. That the league is seeking help from the federal government here, just like with many businesses right now with all the shutdowns here. I mean, at the end of the day, the Canadian Football League is a business. However, optically, it's definitely, you can maybe say, a slippery slope here because we're looking at a professional sports league as opposed to just any other small business that has to shut down or reduce their operating, and people have been either laid off or work less hours here. But the thing is, the CFL is not the same kind of big league. Let's say the NFL, the NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, where they definitely have more revenue sources here. And for example, with the NFL in the South there, in the U.S., they make tons of more money on revenue from TV alone. That, for example, who knows, we don't know anything yet with the NFL, they still have some time here that, let's say if they play this upcoming season with no fans, they're still going to make some money from TV revenue merchandise here. However, that does not work exactly with the CFL here. Excuse me. That it's a gate-driven league here, and definitely they're going to be affected by the whole shutdown here, and that's why you see in the news that it's a big range that the CFL is seeking potentially from the government, between $30 million to $150 million, where they say that if they need $30 million from the government here so they can stay afloat here. And then I did see numbers like $20 to $70 million. Let's just say we have some kind of a season here, and it's not going to obviously start on time because I already talked about that training camps have been postponed, and that the league said, well, season ain't going to start before July, which wipes out 3 games already. And then now the fact that here in Calgary and other jurisdictions in the country here, that they put in bans on big public gatherings and events for the rest of the summer here, so that's pretty much half the season here. And then it's still tricky to figure out that if indeed the league does come back and play, will they play in front of fans here, or would they play at all here? Because the worst case scenario is $150 million that the CFL is seeking if there was no season at all and no Grey Cup here. But it's definitely a slippery slope here. And then the league also did say that they're looking at possibly paying it back, not monetarily with money back, but more partnerships with the government when it comes to advertising their big events here. But you got to look beyond just the games and the sports itself here, because getting back into other businesses, that have their shut down or reduce their operating costs, staff here. Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of staff that's still affected, and also the residual effects. Let's just say if we do lose the CFL, because there's a lot of hotels, businesses, and like restaurants that. I mean, for example, when I go to catch a football game out of town here, I'm also spending money on restaurants, hotels, and any other activities that I do in that city because I'm there. And if I'm going to go catch a football game out of town here, I might as well do a few other things while I'm there as well here. They'll definitely miss out because I wouldn't be able to plan any future trips here. And I know that the league is going to have to try to tug on the historical part here, because this could start, something else where maybe a few other leagues say, well, if this Canadian Football League gets some government intervention so they can survive, get through this, and continue operating, that other leagues might, smaller leagues could want to get their piece as well here. But getting back into, it's not just the games, and yeah, it's professional sports here, but you got to remember, it's a gate-driven league where most of the revenue is made from fans going to the game, buying merchandise, concessions, any other parking and that at the stadium there. Well, obviously that's all not going to happen if there isn't going to be the games, and even then the CFL hasn't really said about how are they going to play a season when it's deemed safe from government and health officials here, because there's, including Alberta here, that many provinces released plans on reopening things. We're not at that phase yet where they're going to talk about bringing back concerts and sporting events here, and it's not going to be a while yet before you're going to see that, unless something dramatic changes as proven in the medical community, or you have a treatment or a vaccine here, but that's still many months away here, realistically. But you got to remember, it's a business still, where they're paying taxes into it. You've got employees that pay taxes from their paychecks here, and that if they don't have work, they're going to be drawing in some government resources because of that. And we're talking about all the office staff, anyone who works with the team, anyone who broadcasting, and as well, tourist sites, restaurants. They definitely count on having the CFL here, and then TSN is definitely, the league does get some money, but it's not as much as the major leagues. That's their one way to promote putting stuff on during the summer there too. So there's definitely a couple, sectors that would definitely, I would say, support it here. But it's just that slippery slope between sports and other small businesses here. But the CFL definitely has been a part of the Canadian culture and fabric here for well over 100 years, and evolved from rugby there. And one example where, if you want to look back on, tells you how long the CFL's been around for, is when I did my On the Road to the Grey Cup series here. When I talk about Grey Cup matchups here, I've only done it for a couple seasons, where I previewed this past Grey Cup with the Hamilton Tiger Cats and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers here, and I was looking at the matchup between those two cities here. It goes all the way back to the early 1900s, and same with Calgary and Ottawa. When I previewed the 106th Grey Cup here, that it dated back. There were some matchups earlier before the modern era here, but it's not like the league is asking for billions. Because the one thing that I think, when you look at $150 million to you and I, that's a lot of money here. But when it comes to the government here, it's almost like a drop in the bucket here, because they also say, well, it's only a couple dollars per Canadian. But the government also keeps having no problem spending billions on, I'm not trying to get too political here, but we spend billions as taxpayers to the CBC, yet less people are consuming that. And then Bombardier's definitely been in the news for asking for bailouts too. So it is a slippery slope. The league does have some plan to find a different ways to pay it back here, but the CFL, I think, definitely has some work to do on how to get this funding for government intervention here to keep this league afloat here, because that was definitely one of the things I was wondering about. When you hear all these other major leagues, and I'll talk about that in separate videos and their plans, and how they plan on A, coming back, and B, playing the games here. And the major leagues could afford a little more. They're still going to take a hit too, where fans won't be allowed in the stadium to watch said game. But it'll definitely hit the CFL more, because that's their funding model here. But what do you think? I'm not surprised that when the story came out, but I think hopefully both the government and the league could come up with something so that we could still have a league to support. And the league just recently had their draft, and they're still conducting business as usual, but it's still up in the air on what games will happen there. And the other thing you also read that I'm not too sure if it's kind of true or not, or if it'll actually happen. But let's say if this season does not happen at all, you hear stories that apparently there's a loophole in the agreement that if the season does not happen here, everyone's going to be free agents here. And I mean, that definitely could be scary to think too, that we spent all this time and money last season to try to keep Bo Levi Mitchell, and if suddenly he's a free agent here, and many other stars in the league. But I think that's worst case scenario here. But I mean, what do you think about the Canadian Football League? Seeking government intervention here, just like many other businesses here, but it's just you gotta look just beyond the games here too. You gotta look at all the people that work for the teams and the broadcasting, and definitely some small part in restaurants, hotels, and that definitely rely on it being game day to get out of town fans. And I do plan football trips, and I also do been to some Grey Cups here, and I'll share some pictures at the end of this video on me at Grey Cups in the past that I've attended, and definitely have some memories, and especially a couple Grey Cups that I was at where I watched Calgary win the Grey Cup here. But that's just my take on it. I mean, it's kind of a slippery slope, but there's a few other examples that billions get spent on a few other companies that keep getting bailouts. But and I guess the last thing you got to mention too is, let's say if the CFL is gone, well, what's going to happen to some of these beautiful new stadiums that all levels of government chipped in? I mean, we got Winnipeg and Saskatchewan definitely recently got their new stadiums here, and hopefully maybe Calgary will get a new stadium one of these years for the Stampeders. But I mean, it's all levels of government that spent on that, and I know that 3 of the 9 teams are definitely could hope that they're going to get more funding, a lot more, because you got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Saskatchewan Roughriders, and Edmonton Eskimos. Those 3 teams of the 9 right now in the league are all actually community owned. Everyone else is privately owned here, and have have owners that have more money. But it's definitely not something you get rich off, or you barely either make just enough for a profit after you talk about the operating costs and the teams and everything, all the associated expenses with it here. I know that Toronto and Montreal right now are struggling because they're trying to get fans back. But yeah, it's what do your take on this whole thing here? And hopefully there'll be some kind of agreement, and we can still have a league whenever things get back going here. So anyway, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my channel here, and even though I've been inside here, but I've still been busier working here, so I'm still mostly watch my videos on the weekend here. But I also talk Calgary sports, but I also do personal vlogs, attempt at comedy, and I also share my experiences when, let's say, I'm on the road on holidays or at a sporting event here. So if that sounds like y'all be interested to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, you know what you need to do. I also have my other social media links down in the description below there. So as I say here, go Stamps go, and hopefully, we'll still have a CFL to support here years down the road here, depending on what happens with everything. If government does grant some intervention or not here, but hopefully we're not going to be making a video on saying the league is folded. And one series that I do plan on start doing soon is when I call it the Remember the Calgary series, where I'll talk about the Funk Calgary sports team. Let's hope the Calgary Stampeders football team doesn't suddenly have to find their way in that video series here, but that's something to watch for down the road here. So as I say, go Stamps go, and I'll see you in the next video.